I definitely knew that the time was limited and we were done. Well, I wouldn't say I hated the right to censor. I would just say that it was not a very enjoyable time personally or professionally for me. I mean, it was a great opportunity. I'm not discounting that at all. I'm not turning my nose up at the fact that this was probably the best opportunity to make the most amount of money in my career and lifetime. But, things happened, things fell short. Perception is reality. You can use any of these wrestling tropes that you want to use, but the downfall, the hardest thing about the downfall part, the rise I didn't even see. Like, it was very surreal that promo time every week, 6 to 8 minutes of promo, full segment, opening shows, closing shows, and main event spots, whether managing or being the part of a match that we'll talk about later. I think that was towards the end of the show of SmackDown or maybe even the main event. But the downfall I saw coming like right from the moment it happened. That's what we're going to kind of explore right here. And then a slow death, but obviously dead from that particular moment that I'm talking about, and we're done.
I wanted to mention that Val Venis, when I interviewed him, whenever it was, a year ago, a year and a half ago, I can't, time means nothing to me anymore. And weirdly, the video was actually recommended to me through whatever YouTube channel I was using. So he was told by The Office that a few of the WWF shows have been picketed by protesters. This is something that I asked you about, you didn't know. And that one of the advertisers, Coca-Cola, had dropped the WWF as a client because of pressure from L. Brent Bozell and the PTC. So the next week, Vince McMahon had all the Coca-Cola taken out of catering and replaced by Pepsi.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I'm not like witness to any of that, but, I can see Vince doing that. What would you do? I would do the same thing. If you're doing that, I will switch. And, we all tend to be a little bit petty, or the I'll show you, you'll see type thing. And this is an example of Vince doing that. The Val was figured in a lot more with, I guess, the rumblings or the gossip or the inner workings of this kind of stuff that happened, friend of a friend type of tele-wrestler type of thing. So Val would be very privy, I think, at that particular point, that he would probably not have heard it himself. And also probably with Vince, there would be something catering where Vince is like, get this crap out of here. You know what I mean? Come in and Pepsi. Pepsi's the best. Dr. Pepper. But I can see Vince making a visual, like, kind of stand like that. And I wouldn't doubt if Vince had the camera crew filming and taking just to use it in something if he could. Now, if I were Vince, this would have been great. I would have been, Coca-Cola is causing this. The ingredients in Coca-Cola are making women want to undress, are making the wrestlers violent. So we're going to switch Coke out for Pepsi, which is a much safer soda than Coca-Cola.
Boy, you sure know how to open the WWF to a lawsuit.
Ha ha. Maybe they should get the defamation insurance.
Yeah,
of course, they pretty much broke even on the WCW thing. We're going to talk about the lawsuit later that I wasn't aware of.
Lawsuit?
Yeah, the lawsuit against the PTC. It's here in the notes that you wrote.
Oh, God, yeah. I thought you said WCW.
No, I said he broke even because they paid $4 million for WCW. And the law. Ha ha. So
I'm sick. Just so you know, I'm moving.
I thought you were going to say you're sick of me for a second.
No, I'm sick of. No, I'm just feeling sick at the moment. So I'm just.
So how is that going to get Vince sued off of what I just said?
Well, no. I mean, I'm saying if Vince had said Coca-Cola was making women strip and men violent.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that would be an issue.
That's true. That's exactly what the lawsuit later was about. So, yeah, you're right.
Now, the breakup after the Cat was fired, the WWF writers immediately pivoted. This was like so the Cat was on Raw. Then the next day, I think the Cat was fired and Jerry Lawler left. And then the storyline for that episode of SmackDown is Val Venis succumbed to temptation, and I believe that was part of the Cat and going to the strip clubs and etc. Then after that, right to censor's pretty much on the outs. Ivory obviously loses at WrestleMania 17. You guys lose at WrestleMania 17. And then you're basically just on the way out. You're just being beaten on the way out. Then there's a famous segment on WWF Smackdown where it would be a 4-on-1 match. All male Right to Censor members versus the Undertaker. All 4 members of Right to Censor beat down on Taker until one, Mr. Stephen Richards, Esquire, decides that he wants to be the one to pin the dead man. All doesn't go according to plan and Taker beats up Richards, culminating with a last ride powerbomb and a clean pin while the other members of the Right to Censor look on before all leaving without Richards. This would basically be the end of Right to Censor, although Ivory and Stevie Richards, or Stephen Richards, would continue to work in their formal outfits for a short while longer before the gimmick was dropped entirely. We'll get to the powerbomb in a minute, but why don't we talk about the end of Right to Censor? How far out did you see this happening? Who told you that basically it was about done? And everything about the dissolution of the group.
I don't think anybody told me, but the writing was on the wall. As I said in part 1, the rise of the Right to Censor, nobody was allowed to touch me for months and months and months. An integral part of why I got so much heat, particularly in the group, because nobody could physically touch me, get to me, hit me with their finish, put me through a table or anything like that. As we're talking about this kind of stuff, it's already now been there, done that. Horses left the barn, at least put me through a table. Everybody's getting to me. They even Unforgiven in Philadelphia. I think Bradshaw got to me after the match. They put me through a table, then Bradshaw hit me after that. As this is happening, the steam is coming off of us because it was all based on nobody could get to me. I don't know. They didn't have a plan to keep me over, even with promos, which probably extended the life that we got promo time. But the promo time became a vehicle for people to beat me up. In other words, there was also not just the Undertaker thing, which I think was the last official thing, but then around that time on Sunday Night Heat, pre-Stevie Night Heat, Sunday Night Heat, Steve Blackman came out, and we had a really fun segment with the nunchucks where I took him, he had a spare, hit me. That kind of showed that the company was cooling me down specifically because I'm getting beat up not only on Raw and SmackDown, but now on Heat. So you sort of know that, it's we're on I use the term pitch count, but our time is very limited. And then, of course, this 4-on-1 match with Taker, where we aren't getting along as it is. And that's also another thing, the beginning of the end, arguing, doing this and that. And then I tell them to leave. We'll see it in the whiteboard segment. They leave. They see me get beat up. They don't help me. They see me I call it the worst ride, not the last ride, because I don't take a great power bomb. But that there was definitely, like I said in the beginning, I knew exactly what was happening at that point. The rise, I didn't know how far we were going to take the rise up to. If we're going to stay in the upper main event, upper mid card, be a heel stable that's always going to constantly have some sort of steam. But I definitely knew, just as I know with Display Link Manager not working, I definitely knew that the time was limited and we were done. Right there. Nobody came up and specifically told me, hey, you guys are done. That's the end of it. But, after being in the business for a while, you're done. That's pretty much it.
So did you have, or did the company have, as far as you knew, any backup plans for you whatsoever? Because I know we talked about in the last Right to Censor episode that, you had to just basically go away and lose some weight and, let the company know that you still had value, you're taking it seriously, or however you interpreted it. But did the company ever come to you with any suggestions of how you could morph from Stephen Richards to something else?
No. As a matter of fact, Jim Ross called me to his office and, to his credit, very bluntly said that, you're heavy, your work's not up to par, you're not doing a very good job. And this is before I got sent down to developmental down there, HWA, Les Thatcher, Cincinnati, Ohio, and then working once in a while in OVW in Louisville, Kentucky. But he did say, you need to lose weight and we're going to go send you down there and we still might release you, but you need to work harder. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but basically it was the come to Jesus moment that basically you're going to leave. So I said, okay, well, if I'm going to get released, I'm going to work as hard as I can to make this happen, or at least stay. And if not, my next stop, hopefully I'm going to be able to have a good run. That was pretty much it.
So, you would miss the majority of the invasion angle of 2001, lucky you. Wrestling the occasional house show or dark match from September onwards of 2007, and of course, you would turn back up on mainstream WWF television, managing Chronic. I'm going to give you a quick couple of bits of information that you might find interesting on Right to Censor, and more specifically, the PTC, who the Right to Censor were based off of. So on November 9th, 2000, the PTC was sued by the WWF for defamation after they claimed that Vince McMahon's company was responsible for the deaths of 4 children, emulating the moves on WWF television. On July 8th, 2002, the lawsuit was settled in the WWF's favour, winning a $3.5 million settlement and an apology from L. Brent Bozell III himself. I'm sure that must have really chapped away at him having to write that. And as you said before as well, $3.5 million is actually $1 million more than WWF paid for WCW. So with the legal fees, it got to about $4.3 million. So you're right. I mean, basically one apology and a settlement, and they got a Right to Censor group out of it as well. They basically got WCW for free, if you look at it that way.
Yeah, that's what I was saying in the beginning. It was just kind of funny that I can't think that somebody didn't look at that and say, hey, we recouped the money that we paid for WCW. And they made money, although they could have made a lot more money off the invasion. It was one of the worst and poorly executed things ever done as far as the invasion.